So we just got a big update for Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League coming from Rocksteady. Specifically, they are lifting the part of the NDA from the alpha playtest back in November, saying that you can't talk about it. So this means now that anyone who played it is allowed to talk about it, including me. Now listen, I've been very coy about this for a while because under an NDA, you can't acknowledge that you played it. You can't disclose anything about it. You can't share what you thought, your impressions. You can't even be like, ooh, I played it and now I pre-ordered it. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. You can't do any of that. So I had to stay very tight-lipped and just continue as normal. But now that they've lifted this and now that we're allowed to discuss it, I want to offer my thoughts since I have played Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League for however many hours it was, and I have some thoughts. First things first, and a little bit of housekeeping, they still have a restriction on gameplay, meaning that we cannot show any footage or anything that we might have captured during the event. Not that you could have, they had everything watermarked like crazy, so you couldn't even really use anything if you did capture it, but still. As a result, I can't show you any footage backing up any points that I'm trying to make. So I guess you're gonna have to trust me, bruh. But because I don't want this video to just be my face, we're gonna show some footage and B-roll and stuff of gameplay that they've previously released through official channels. So none of the footage you're gonna see in this video was captured by me. It's official footage that they have put out, just to be completely clear. Now, I went through the playtest with a few friends. The first thing you did when you booted up the game was calibrate the graphics and target frame rates, stuff like that, and then also select the difficulty you wanted to go through the game on, at least starting. This could be changed later though. The three options were walk in the park, best pay attention, and sweating bullets, which offered, as you increase the difficulty, varying levels of rewards, whether that's higher XP or improved resource drops. After this, we went into a little tutorial section where we got to learn how to play with each one of the members of the Suicide Squad. This means we got acclimated with all of the characters, whether we wanted to play Deadshot, Harley Quinn, King Shark, or Boomerang. We got to try them all. These tutorials were extremely simple and basically took us through a couple of small arenas, teaching us how to play, how to move, swing, and navigate the maps. This took about 20 to 25 minutes to get through all of the little tutorials, and then we go into a team-based tutorial, which is a bigger combat encounter where you select which one of the characters you want to start playing with and specializing in. I started specialized with King Shark because he had a really cool jump mechanic for movement and his minigun seemed like it could be fun. One of the first notes that I took was that I felt the UI was a little bit busy, especially once you started dealing with multiple objectives or a swath of enemies on screen. It started to get a little bit overwhelming. Thankfully, this can be customized in the menu, and if you want to turn certain things off, you can, but often with UI, the reason it's on screen in the first place is because the developers intend for you to see that information. It's the same thing with an open world game if they give you a mini map and they've designed quest encounters and objectives around the player having that mini map available to them. It allows them to have busier city streets and more complicated layouts of levels because they know that you can always fall back on that mini map. Turning it off is certainly viable, but it definitely will harm your overall experience while exploring since they designed it assuming you would have it enabled. And the same thing is true here. You can turn off certain UI elements, but the developers put those on screen by default because they felt that information was necessary. So all of that to say, it's not as easy as just turning off the UI to fix this problem. After this tutorial combat encounter is over, we load into the main menu of the game where we can matchmake with our friends and head into the story. It's also at this point that you can go through different looks for your characters, equipping different skins or loadouts, and you can also tweak weapon profiles and loadouts and things like that. However, at this point in the game, at the very beginning, there isn't anything to customize. I will also say that they did not have the Battle Pass tab enabled, nor did they have the store enabled, meaning that you couldn't peruse any of this, and so if you're wondering what that looks like or how it might be laid out, I honestly don't know. It was not enabled. After this, a series of cutscenes play, establishing the basic premise of the game. There's some pretty funny dialogue and banter back and forth between the characters, and it really shows that this is where Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League is going to excel within the story. Harley Quinn is especially a standout and had me chuckling multiple times. Her carefree approach to every situation might get old over the course of an entire video game, but at least in these small doses, it's fun and entertaining. We then go through a sequence where the group gets their various movement abilities and items. This is something that was already revealed in official gameplay from Rocksteady themselves, so I won't focus on it too much. But after that, we go and we get to start exploring the open world a little bit more while hunting down the Flash. I feel like this is when we first get to really know how this game works. This gameplay was also revealed, and I can attest that these sequences are what the majority of the game is made up of. Fighting purple and blue enemies, shooting weak points, and bouncing around with your teammates. It's not bad, it just gets really old really quickly. I played through this one time through by myself, and then I also played through it with my friends, and I was kind of done by the time we got finished up with the alpha playtest. I was like, okay, it's just more of the same. And yes, you can like tweak this gun. And yes, you can equip this thing in the skill tree to give your grenades plus like 1.5 times blast power and stuff. But for me personally, it just was not captivating enough to make me want to play this for hundreds and hundreds of hours. I was like, okay, there's only so many purple little dudes I can shoot before it starts to feel like I'm just doing the same thing over and over and over again, expecting a different result, which is the definition of insanity. I will say playing with friends is where the game also excelled. It was clear that that's what the game was designed around. This is certainly possible to play as a single player title, but it has been crafted from the ground up, assuming that most people will go through with friends and with a party they know that have crafted their builds around certain playstyles, complementing each other. And that made it all the more frustrating when a lot of these missions required us to just bounce around the map, going from one objective to another, multiple kilometers away from each other, racing each other effectively, and inevitably one of us would arrive before the rest, and then you just stand around waiting for the rest of the group to arrive. Or in typical looter shooter fashion, you can stand on the objective marker and then it'll start a timer, which when it runs out will warp all of the other party members to your location, which basically bypasses the whole point of the game, which is to navigate this open world with cool movement abilities while shooting enemies. There was one mission I did where I arrived at the objective marker well before the rest of the party, playing as Harley Quinn, and I actually had a decent time swinging around trying to survive while the rest of my party made their way over to me. However, again, it was just more of the same. Purple glowing guys with big zits on their backs that you could shoot for extra critical damage. And when paired with their brain dead AI, I eventually realized I didn't have to fight them. I could just stand behind a singular column and they couldn't see me and their hit detection would break and they just basically forgot about me, like an old school stealth game with terrible AI itself. And listen, maybe the combat encounters and stuff get really good towards the end of the game. Maybe they start to like really crank it. But these like standard missions in the open world that are just built around fighting waves and waves of enemies and then shooting the big glowing purple thing with a big weak spot, and then ooh, tanks come in with big glowing purple weak spots. It's just all over the place, and all of the missions start to blend together. I understand that maybe it gets better and they get tougher as the game goes on, so maybe it doesn't feel that samey. But like, again, it's not my fault if the playtest and the first couple of hours of the game are boring and bland and repetitive. It's not my fault. That's their fault for making it that way. And I'm just calling it like it is, which is that as an outside player, this just started to get really samey and old in just a matter of an hour or two. What didn't get old was the section with Batman. This has been hinted at in a couple of videos and trailers. I'm not going to spoil anything too specifically because I'm not sure if all of the stuff I went through has actually been revealed publicly, and I don't want to get in trouble. So all I will say is that these sections with members of the Justice League are where the game really, really excels. Truly, this was where the game was at its absolute best. However, looking at my notes, from the time that this sequence started to the time it ended was less than 7 minutes. And this is where it's just going to be a matter for you to ask yourself, like, is 7 minutes of really cool narrative linear content worth 2 hours of grind and repetitive fighting through waves of purple glowing enemies? For some players, I'm sure it will be. For others, it's just not. And that's just going to be up to you. One of the other things that was actively annoying me and my friends that I took multiple notes on were the constant interruptions in pace for dialogue and banter. Initially, I thought the interplay between the members of the Suicide Squad was really good and catchy, and it didn't get old at all. However, again, after just about an hour and a half or 2 hours of gameplay, I realized that there really wasn't that much here, and a lot of the jokes and tropes were getting old already. Boomerang steadily became more and more annoying, almost like he was trying to speedrun the world's most annoying companion in a video game. Deadshot's brooding nature is at least a little more nuanced and interesting, but it also makes him the actual killjoy of the group. Harlequin is silly and outrageous, and King Shark is basically this game's version of Drax from Guardians of the Galaxy. In small, short sequences, this isn't that bad. However, there were multiple occasions when we were engaging in gameplay and combat and actually having a pretty good time with each other as friends playing this co-op game. But then it would all stop, not for an interesting cutscene or dynamic sequence of cool cinematic stuff going on, but rather for the characters to just stand still in a singular circle on an objective marker waiting for dialogue to play out, and then once it completes, we can continue moving. It's that stereotypical thing of all of the characters in a party playing a looter shooter or something like that, standing around, unable to run or even jog, but rather having to slowly walk while dialogue plays out as the game loads in the next sequence. It's really annoying, and it actively pissed us off because we would be really into a combat encounter, really into something going on, and then it just stops dead in its tracks so that they can play out some audio files so that we get some piece of exposition that could have been communicated in a better way. And this is the thing that I think frustrated me and my friends the most, was simply that it felt as though the game didn't pace itself very well. It seemed like there were certain sequences where the game really started to get going, like the aforementioned Batman sequence, and then other sections of the game just came to an absolute crawl, and then others stretched on for far too long. It's extremely unlike Rocksteady, who previously have been the masters of pacing within their games. They've historically been really, really good at this, so it was very strange to see them struggle with it here. Maybe it is just the alpha test, and maybe things weren't working properly, maybe dialogue wasn't triggering the way it was supposed to, but again, that's not my fault. All I can do is report the game as it appeared to me, and that's it. Like, I can't speculate on, well, maybe it's going to be better at launch. All I can go with is what I saw and what I played. What I saw and played was a game that seemed decently fun in small doses, but a game that I was already getting bored with after just 2 or 3 hours of gameplay. And that's a problem. Again, this is a live service game that they're hoping players will engage with for thousands of hours. They have at least a year of support planned for this game. They want you to buy it and play it through to when GTA 6 launches. Like, that's their goal. They want this to be a live service game all the way through that. And after just one session with my friends, we were all like, well, okay, you want to go play Lethal Company? You want to go play, I don't know, Baldur's Gate or something different? Like Overwatch 2 even? Like, let's go play something like that. And that is the worst thing that you could say about a live service game, is that after you play it for a little bit, you're just ready to move on. And unfortunately, that's where I'm at with Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League after playing it myself. I think the story seems interesting. I think the acting and cutscenes are really well done. But honestly, I don't know why you'd pay $70 to get 7 minutes of interesting content and then 2 hours of bloat. And then you got to sift through all that bloat to get to the good stuff, when you could just watch like a cinematic version of the game, just with all the cutscenes cut together into like a game movie. You just do that for free on YouTube. Like, it just doesn't really make sense to me why you'd spend all this money and waste all this time grinding to get a story you can engage with and absorb in other ways. Who knows? Maybe the game, when it launches, ends up being really, really awesome. And maybe this is just a game that shows really poorly. Maybe it's a game that just during preview events and alpha tests, it just doesn't win over skeptical people or people that are not super into this type of game already. But who knows? Time will tell. We will see when the reviews drop. We will check it out. But I'm happy to report I did play the game, and I also found it quite wanting. But with all that said, if you want to hear my extended thoughts, come over to Luke Stevens Live, my second channel, where I stream every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and sometimes other days as well. Come over, ask me questions about the game, the playtest. I'd be happy to answer them, because I'm allowed to answer them now, which is kind of cool. But with that, I'm going to go, because my doctor said I should not talk a whole lot today because I have a terrible ear infection. Straight up, when the doctor looked in my ear, she just went, oh my God. So I'm gonna follow her advice while I wait for these meds to kick in and everything. So I'm not gonna push it. Thank you for watching. Thanks for making my dreams a reality. And let me know what you think of Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. And if you tried the alpha test, let me know that in the comment section below. Maybe you loved it. Maybe everybody loved it and I'm the one guy that didn't. I don't know. Let me know your thoughts. But with all that said, thank you for watching. I love you all. I'll see you in the next one. Hugs and kisses. Bye-bye.